Hey guys, it's the Mad Master here. I'm doing this review for the third damn time, so I better get it right this time. So, recently Iron Maiden has put out their new album, The Book of Souls. And, of course, them being my favorite band, I was very excited to hear it. Now, post-reunion, I've liked a few of their albums more than others. I think The Final Frontier was a great album, had great production compared to the previous two. It sounded a little bit more clean. The mastering was better. And some of the songs were a little bit more adventurous without sounding disjointed or jarring in a certain way. So I liked that album. I liked Brave New World a lot. Not all of it. It gets a little old after the 45 minutes mark or whatever. No, some of the songs are pretty good even after that. Dance to Death I thought was a stinker. It was probably their worst album since Virtual 11, and had the worst album cover since Virtual 11 too. Even though Virtual 11 actually the cover is kind of cool in a way, but I had songs like Age of Incidents or Face in the Sand or New Frontier, just plotting, boring fucking songs, And then you had A Matter of Life and Death, which I really liked, and that's where it was a kind of a weird album because that was kind of like their answer to X Factor, but with Bruce Dickinson in a certain way. And then you had, Final Frontier, which I already talked about. So, what is this album? What's the basic thing going on with this? So, this album is their longest album. It's like 92 minutes and 11 seconds or something like that. So, which is pretty interesting, but it could have been cut down, obviously. So, the first single that came out was Speed of Light. Now, Speed of Light, I do like. I like it more than Wildest Dreams or Different Worlds or whatever those singles, which I never liked either one of those. I thought they were really bad Wicker Man kind of cast-offs, just, ugh. Speed of Light I like better than El Dorado even. I thought El Dorado, which was from the last album, was kind of boring. It was okay, So, Speed of Light, I noticed the first thing was Bruce sounds a little strained in some of those parts. Now, he doesn't sound bad, and it's not the first time he sounded strained. So, of course, that might piss off a few fans, but I truly believe that on Somewhere in Time, at parts he sounded a little strained, even though it worked with the album. And Live After Death, obviously, when he does Flight of Icarus, at the end, fly as high as the sun, yeah! Instead of, he does. That's not fucking, yeah! It's not fucking singing the part, So Live After Death is the most overrated album ever. It's an album that got me into heavy metal, and I'm saying this, but that's whatever. So, anyways, Dickinson is always mixed in certain ways to me. He's not. I like him a lot, but sometimes some of his choices I wouldn't agree with. But I love him as a singer, and this is a weird review saying this stuff, but some of Bruce Dickinson, I like his stuff and I like his solo stuff. I just, I think that sometimes he gets a little bit too much acclaim to some extent, but I still think he's great. Okay, he's one of the best, but he's still, So I don't know what I'm trying to say with that, but he sounds a little strained on a few of the songs, and he's not getting any younger. He sounds far better than a lot of his contemporaries that are, doing similar types of music. And so does Rob Halford sounds really good too. Rob Halford kind of came back to sounding good live too. And I think Bruce has always sounded good since the reunion live, even more than on the record sometimes. Because something with regards to their production or something happens when they produce these albums. So I'm not blaming him for the sound. So, anyways, back to the album. If Eternity Shall Fail is the first, or should fail, it's the first song. And Bruce Dickinson actually gets solo credit for it. Now, it's kind of a mid-paced, kind of galloping song in the key of D minor. Some of their best songs like Fear the Dark are in D minor, and it starts out with this almost like Dio-ish Holy Diver, or like 80s action film kind of synth intro, which is actually really cool. I thought that was a cool thing. It has this like weird like narration at the end too, which is kind of cool too. It sounds like they could have done it. They were maybe thinking about doing a concept album, and who knows, maybe they scrapped that idea or something. Now, Speed of Light is next, and I think it's an okay song. It's a Smith Dickinson composition. You know, it's a single, and it's whatever. You know, the video is really cool. The video has 8-bit video game designed. You know, or it was like an 8-bit video game. It looks like that. I think they should actually do the game itself for real and make it a super long 8-bit video game and try to fit it, you know, on some kind of system or you know, PC or whatever. That would be really cool. The Flash game they had up on their website wasn't as cool as the game in the video, but the video was pretty cool. The Great Unknown. Now that song, it's all right. Steve Harris wrote it, and it's just kind of whatever. Now this next song that's on there, The Red and the Black. Now that's a really controversial song with me because everything counts against it as far as looking for something in it that is like, oh, well, Maiden have progressed and, you know, they're not repeating themselves, etc., etc. Because everything else has been there before. You know, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner kind of riffs and, you know, the E minor melodies and stuff, and, you know, even some parts that are like Heaven Can Wait with the woes. But for some reason, to me, it's the catchiest song in the album. Even though it's so cliched for Iron Maiden to do this song at this point. I loved it. I love it. At first I was like, man, this is so, you know, so much like this other song, but that is where it works. 13 minutes and 33 seconds. That was the only song that Steve Harris wrote alone on the album. Now, When the River Runs Deep, I can't even remember. I, you know, listened to this album a few times, and, you know, the song's all right. Smith and Steve Harris write it. Now, The Book of Souls is number 6, the title track, 10 minutes and 27 seconds. Now, that song is pretty good. It kind of reminds me of like Perfect Strangers by Deep Purple. You know, it has that Phrygian kind of Eastern, you know, Middle Eastern kind of feel to it. And that's really cool. I liked that song a lot. Yannick Gers is one of the best writers in Maiden. He writes stuff better than, in some ways, he writes better stuff than Adrian Smith now. As blasphemous as it sounds, his lead playing, sometimes it's a little bit chaotic, you know, I'll admit, and his stage presence. But as far as songwriting, he's invaluable to, I mean, he is so integral in their songwriting since 2000 and even in the 90s, because, you know, he saved some of those albums with some really good songs. So next comes Death or Glory, which is a cool song. It's one of the first Smith Dickinson songs on this album to really be worth listening again and again, because it kind of reminds me of that kind of groove or whatever that new wave of British heavy metal bands a lot of times had for their singles. Like Angel Witch has a song like that. It's like, you know, that kind of, you know, I mean, actually, Detroit Rock City has that kind of thing too. It's like this feel. I don't know if it's a shuffle feel. I'm not familiar with drums enough to say what that is, but, you know, it's still 4/4, obviously. But that was kind of a cool song. That could have been the single too. Actually, that would have been a little bit more novel to be the single. Shadow of the Valley. I don't remember if it's this one or When the River Runs Deep that has that Fallen Angel riff ripped off from not Poison, but from themselves. It's okay, you know, could be better. It's not as bad as anything off Dance of Death, I'll say that. Or the bad songs off Dance of Death. Tears of a Clown. You know, this song is all right. It's written for Robin Williams. It has almost like a adult contemporary feel or something to it, even though it has some cool riffs. It's all right. The Man of Sorrows, pretty cool riffs and ideas, but I don't think it comes together in the same way as some of the other songs do. And then finally, Empire of the Clouds by Bruce Dickinson, alone again. 18 minutes and 1 second. The longest song they've ever done. The longest song, you know, they have. And that's the song that kind of was advertised the most as far as hype. And I think it falls short of the hype. I do like it. Now, there are some parts that just sound kind of disjointed. Now, being progressive or whatever that Iron Maiden considers themselves now, it's awesome, you know, but and I have this problem with songwriting sometimes too, like my own bands, because especially with older bands, just throwing a bunch of riffs together, not saying that Dickinson did that, but I'm saying being disjointed in general is not progressive if it doesn't flow in the same way that it should. Now, it is a cool song. I'd give it, you know, 6 or 7 out of 10, but it's not a 10. You know, it's not super awesome. You know, in the same way, even like Ghost of the Navigator was. You know, songs like that, or even some songs from Matter of Life and Death. You know, really good shit. You know, these more progressive songs on there. I think that it falls short. It has some cool parts. Maybe I'm trying to remember. It has like some dissonant chords or some, you know, stuff that they haven't done before. Which, by the way, in Final Frontier they had a few of that too. Like Satellite 15. That was fucking great. What a great song. What a great intro. Uh, so overall, that the album I would give as a whole 3 out of 5. Now I give Final Frontier like 4 out of 5 or 4.5. I give Matter of Life and Death maybe 4, maybe 3.9 out of 5 or something like that. I'd give Dance of Death 2 out of 5, 2.5 out of 5. If we're going like the Rolling Stone magazine old school kind of rating system or something like that. Now, Brave New World, I would give 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5, maybe 4 out of 5. So 3 out of 5 isn't bad. As bad as it sounds, I'd give Virtual 11 maybe about the same to some extent, because it has songs like Future Real, which is one of my favorite post, you know, Dickinson after he left, one of the best songs they did. I thought that just elevated the album. Klansman with a C, not the clan, you know, not like the Ku Klux Klansman. It's a song about the Scottish clans or whatever. So, and I also gave you know, the Don't Look in the Eyes of the Stranger was a cool song. I think Virtual 11 was a cool album. I just think they could have edited some parts and had better production. You know, that's, if it had some of the singles that weren't released for X Factor, especially like Justice of the Peace, they would have smoothed things over. It would have been one of their best albums since the 80s. That's a very controversial opinion, but I will stick by it. I like Blaze. He could have done a better job on that album because of the production or whatever, but, you know, like X Factor was really good with him. But so what are some of the great things about this album? Well, the guitar solos are awesome. The tones are amazing. Like Adrian Smith's tone on it. I don't know what he's doing, but what he uses, but it sounds amazing. The production is better than Dance of Death and A Matter of Life and Death. The probably a little bit better in a certain way than Brave New World. But Brave New World was crunchier, I'll say that. And then not as good as The Final Frontier in a certain way. So it has a lot of cool stuff, a lot of cool ideas. Now, the lyrics are amazing. Okay, some of the best lyrics they ever did. You know, it's about like some Mayan mythology kind of stuff, or like spiritual kind of things. You know, they mix around all sorts of different things. Some really awesome lyrics. Empire of the Clouds is like about a airship crash in 1930 or something. That's cool ideas for songs. You know, so I mean, I love the lyrics. Lyrics actually, when I read them, probably elevated the album a little higher for me than it would have normally. I thought the lyrics were just so well written. It's not like that they're super dullards as far as lyrics, though. I mean, fucking, they wrote songs about Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and even though that was a poem, you know, they're lyrically, they've always been pretty strong, other than like From Here to Eternity or something, you know, some shit like that, or A Weekend Warrior. Oh God, they're both from Fear of the Dark. So how does this stack up to other Iron Maiden albums? Well, I could say for post reunion, it's kind of middle of the road. It's better than Dance of Death. It's not as good as Brave New World. Probably not as good as A Matter of Life and Death, and definitely not as good as Final Frontier. But Dance of Death was such a, just didn't, I mean, it didn't work. All the songs, none of the songs are offensive. You know, they're not, you can't listen to this song and just like, this is just total shit. Like, some of the songs, I thought, like Age of Innocence, or some of the songs off Deaths of Death were just like so bad I fucking turned it off. There's nothing like that on here. I mean, some of the songs are just too repetitive or whatever. Now, at this point in their career, I thought they could have done a little better with some of the musical progressions that they had on somewhat on Matter of Life and Death, but even more in fruition on Final Frontier. Now, there's some parts of songs that have that on here, but they really stick to sort of the formula way too much sometimes. and it's like they weren't sure. Maybe they weren't sure about how to really do something new, but at the same time keeping some of the old. But the Final Frontier, I thought they nailed it, even if not all the songs are the greatest. You know, it's kind of some of it's kind of not as great. You know, some of the time, but you know, songs like "The Talisman" or "Mother of Mercy" or well, "Coming Home" even more. Like "Coming Home," like that riff in there, it just sounded more modern. "The Alchemist" was like a ripoff of "Man on the Edge," but it was a really good ripoff. You know, so I mean, the lyrics were awesome. So you know, I think overall, you know, Final Frontier succeeds because over this one because it just had more. It was more fresh, and this one is. I don't know. It's just it could be better, it could be worse. You know, but it's not on that level of consistency that some of their classics had. And of course, it's hard at this point of their career to really stack up to some of the classic albums. But they could have cut down on some stuff, and maybe some songs could flow better. They could have put some parts in other songs and made it flow a little better. And that's really what it suffers from is this consistency in the songwriting. Now, the Red and the Black is a weird, strange exception to a lot of this stuff because some of the, I mean, first of all, it's the most cliched, one of the most cliched, tried and true, trite kind of riffs you can hear on an Iron Maiden album. Fucking, but the way they do it in that song wins out. For some reason, it's my favorite song off the album. And obviously that melody, the way that they do that resonates with me. That's why they're my favorite band. But I know it's like the X Factor. I love the X Factor, but I know it's really full of a lot of these, kind of sort of repetitive kind of things. But I still like it because I like that sound. So it's really a tough one, the Red and the Black. But more songs like the Book of Souls, If Eternity Shall Fail, Death or Glory, Empire of the Clouds done in a different way, and then just take some of those other riffs and just do it in a different way and add some freshness to it. It would have been a lot better. So 3 out of 5. Bruce sounds a little weird on it because I think it's because of production. This is going way too long, but hopefully I didn't diss Bruce Dickinson too much in this review. I like his voice, and that's it.